Hello everybody, and today I'll be looking at the cards that are on the ban list in the Gym Leader Challenge format. So a quick rundown of what Gym Leader Challenge is, or GLC for short, the main difference from Standard being these deck list restrictions, including that you can only play one type of Pokemon in your deck, you can only have one of each card with the same name in your deck, excluding Basic Energy. Cards printed from black and white onwards are legal, so there's a very wide and diverse card pool, and then no rulebox cards such as A-Specs, Radiant Pokemon, Prism Star Pokemon, and then multi-prize Pokemon like Pokemon EX, V-Star, or VMAX. So starting off, we have Lysander's Trump card, and this card lets each player shuffle their discard pile into their deck, except for the Lysander's Trump card. And the reason this is so good is because you can either take a more control route to the game, where you focus on using your resources to take your opponent's resources away and then shuffle them all back in. But the Lysander's Trump card actually also disrupts the control player's approach to the game, because if an aggressive deck is playing, for example, Professor's Research or Ultra Ball, they don't have to worry about what they are discarding as much, because Gym Leader Challenge is a singleton format. So whenever you Ultra Ball something away, you have to make a careful decision that you don't need that resource for the rest of the game, because it will be in your discard pile and potentially have no way of recovering it. Lysander's Trump card just ruined that by having a card that players could play to shuffle all the cards back into the deck. And with cards like Palpad and VS Seeker, both of which allow the recycling of supporter cards, you could reuse Lysander's Trump cards multiple times and have infinite resources at your disposal. Next up is Oranguru with the resource management, where you put 3 cards from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck in any order. And this is very good because it allows you to recycle cards like Reset Stamp, VS Seeker, to just continuously loop resources. And 3 cards is an insane amount of cards to be putting on the bottom for just a 1 energy attack on a basic Pokemon. And Colorless has so much draw. I put Pidgeotto with the airmail on here because it's look at the top 2, keep 1, and put the other on the bottom. So you don't need to discard anything to use it. It doesn't really cost anything to use it. You can just look at the top 2 and keep 1. So you can kind of cycle through your deck really quickly, burn through all the cards that you don't need, and then you can resource management to put them back on the bottom of your deck. It can also make it so you never deck out, as long as you have ways to recover the Oranguru, which you can because you can recycle Pokemon recovery cards with resource management, so you can have this infinite resource loop going. Next up is Forest of Giant Plants, and this reads each player's grass Pokemon can evolve during his or her first turn or the turn he or she plays those Pokemon. So this breaks the rules of evolution completely, and with grass specifically, this was like really, really broken because grass has Sunshine Grace style abilities where once during your turn you can search your deck for a grass Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So once you get 2 or 3 of these going, you can just really consistently search out all your grass Pokemon, get like a full board of 3 stage 2s on your first turn, and then Roserade with the Leparfum ability, where when you evolve it, you can search your deck for any card and put it into your hand. That's insane because now you can bench Roselia, immediately go into Roserade, search out any card, and then you can play something like Scoop Up Net to pick it up and do it again so you get another card, and then you can combo that with Sunshine Grace off of Grovyle to get just more Pokemon, get your entire board set up. So next was a really controlly pair of cards with Chip Chip Ice Axe and Hiker, both of which let you look at the top 3 for Chip Chip Ice Axe and 5 for Hiker of your opponent's deck. Either player's deck, and you choose one of them, and then the player you selected shuffles the other cards back into their deck, and you put the card that you chose on top. So that's really like bad for the game because it lets you control what your opponent is drawing. So if you can get your opponent to a 0 card hand and you can make it so that they won't draw anything good off of their top deck, then you can really just lock them out of the game completely until you run them out of resources. And in colorless specifically, there was Bunnelby with the Barrage, which lets you use an attack it has twice. So you can either choose Burrow to discard the top card of your opponent's deck, but more likely you're using Rototiller to shuffle a card from your discard pile back into your deck. So it lets you loop resources infinitely. You get to shuffle 2 cards back in per turn. And then you can play Reset Stamp and Delinquent to remove your opponent's hand. Delinquent, if there's a stadium card in play, you can discard it, and then your opponent discards 3 cards from their hand. And then Reset Stamp makes your opponent shuffle their hand and draw a card for each of the remaining prize cards. So you could bring your opponent down to 3 prize cards, let your opponent go down to 3 prize cards, play Delinquent, bring them down to 0 cards in hand, and then Chip Ice X and Hiker for the rest of the game to just completely lock them out and just fulfill your game plan of decking them out. Next up is Amazing Rare Kyogre, which for a water, a lightning, a metal, and a colorless, Amazing Surge does 80 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. And this is really, really crazy because the 80 damage is enough to knock out most evolving basics. And if it doesn't knock out most evolving basics, then it will knock out the evolutions that they go into, because 160 is very, very solid numbers to be hitting the entire board for. So you could go knock out all their evolving basics turn very quickly, or you could do just Kyogre twice and go 160 damage, completely board wipe them. And this combo was very easy to enable with the Shady Dealings from Inteleon and Drizzile, which lets you search the deck for a trainer card and put it into your hand. Very solid consistency. And then Articuno with the Blizzard Veil protects your benched water Pokemon from supporters your opponents play. So they can't Boss's Orders your Kyogre early, or your Drizzile early, or your Feebas early, which evolves into the Energy Grace Milotic. Once during your turn, you can knock out the Milotic to attach 3 basic energy cards from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. You could throw the 3 random energy that Kyogre needs, and then attach the 4th one, and you're already using Amazing Surge. And that potentially also lets you play more cards that activate when you're behind on prizes. It's just a really crazy combo that was very easy to get off with the consistency that Water had. Next is Pokemon Research Lab, which lets once during each player's turn, that player may search their deck for up to 2 Pokemon that evolve from unidentified fossil, put those Pokemon onto their bench, and shuffle their deck. If a player searches their deck in this way, their turn ends. So the Aerodactyl and the Arcand, both of which evolve from unidentified fossil. The Arcan evolves into the Archeops with the Primal Turbo. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 2 special energy cards and attach them to one of your Pokemon, and then shuffle your deck. So this is really good for colorless because special energy, there's a bunch of them. Very good to accelerate from the deck specifically. It lets you thin out, and you don't need them into your hand to attach. So you can just consistently get attachments each turn. And then colorless has a very good draw engine, so that you can very typically find Pokemon Research Lab early enough that you can get a turn 2 or a turn 3 Archeops rather easily. And this also breaks the rules of evolution, kind of, because Unidentified Fossil is a single card, and Gym Leader Challenge, you can only play one Identified Fossil, but you end up having 2 Pokemon that evolve from Unidentified Fossil in play at once, and you really shouldn't be able to do that. So that's why it was overall just banned. Next is Amazing Rare Raikou, and this is the second Amazing Rare Pokemon that is on the ban list, mainly because these Pokemon were designed with 330 HP 3 prizers in Pokemon VMAX that were in the format when they existed in Standard. So when you put them into a format where everything typically has 130 HP, is a very typical number to have in Gym Leader Challenge, and then you give Pokemon the ability to do 120 damage to the active and 120 damage to the bench, you can potentially just take out 2 attackers, an attacker and a support Pokemon to cripple their setup, 2 support Pokemon to cripple their setup. They're evolving basics early. You can really just run away with a game with Amazing Rare Raikou. The problem is its energy cost, but it wasn't too difficult to fulfill before these cards on the right came out. There was Counter Energy, Raihan, all of which help accelerate energy. The problem being you need to either be behind on prizes to activate Counter Energy, or your opponent needs to have taken a prize card to activate Raihan. So it's could be more difficult to get those online, but the more recent sets have brought a bunch of cards that would have just made Raikou insanely easy to power up. First off is the Joltik with the Jolting Charge for one colorless. You search your deck for up to 2 basic Grass and 2 basic Lightning Energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. This lets you set up 2/3 of a Raikou, and if you attach the energy to something else, you can either attack with that something else or play Thornton, which lets you switch a basic Pokemon from your discard pile with a basic Pokemon in play, and you keep all the energy attached. So you could potentially power up 2/3 of a Raikou, attach the other energy, use the amazing shot to take 2 prizes. They KO Raikou, and then you play Thornton to switch Raikou with the other Pokemon that you accelerated energy to, attach the third energy and amazing shot again for basically no stress on your resources. And then Magneton would have very much broken Raikou. You can attach up to 3 basic energy from your discard pile to your lightning Pokemon in any way you like. Similar to the Milotic, the Magneton does get knocked out, but this just enables more cards like counter energy. So you can go Magneton, Overvolt Discharge, 1 energy onto the Raikou, and 2 onto something else to set up again for Thornton play, or to just get more energy in play, and then attach the counter energy to the Raikou, and you're hitting Amazing Shot. They KO the Raikou, you promote the other thing that you accelerated energy to. Thornton, bring it back, attach another energy, double Amazing Shot. It's just really, really brutal that you can get it set up so easily. And then Crispin was the other one. Search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards of different types, and then you attach one and put the other into your hand. You can just get 2 energy for the price of 1 supporter card. You accelerate 1 energy using Crispin. You can use Dynamotor, which lets you attach a basic lightning energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon to get the other energy, and then you attach the third that you got off of Crispin, and that's an amazing shot right there. So it was just too easy to power this up. Next is Let Loose Marshadow. Now, this card was in the format for a pretty long time, but it got banned finally for just causing too many non-games, because the Let Loose ability, when you play the Marshadow onto your bench, you may have both players shuffle draw 4. So if you're able to find Marshadow on your first turn going first, which isn't difficult with the likes of Level Ball, Mysterious Treasure, Fog Crystal, all of which lets you search out Marshadow, you can play it and immediately bring your opponent down to a 4-card hand, 5th card off of their top deck. So that's really, really brutal, especially if they dead draw off of the Let Loose and they don't find any way to play the game. You can just keep playing because you got to get set up before you Let Loose. And then the other thing is, Let Loose is the same ability text as Judge, which is a supporter card. So by benching this basic Pokemon, you're playing a supporter card for free, which you can potentially do on your first turn going first. So you could completely cripple your opponent's setup, and then if you wanted to, you could even play Scoop Up Net to use Let Loose again and see a fresh new hand of 4. So it just gave Psychic a bunch more draw, and the ability to play a supporter on basically just a basic Pokemon for benching it, and then you could reuse it with Scoop Up Net, and you had so many outs to it turn 1 with just all the search that Psychic has, so that's why it got finally banned. Next up is Duskull with the Spiritborn evolution, where once during your turn, you may discard 3 cards from your hand. If you do, search your deck for a card that evolves from the Duskull and put it onto the Duskull to evolve it, then you shuffle your deck. So the problem with this is the new Dusclops with the Cursed Blast. Once during your turn, you can put 5 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, and if you use the ability, the Dusclops is knocked out. So if you get the Duskull out, you discard 3 cards from your hand, and you can do this turn 1 going first, so you can potentially do 5 damage counters turn 1 going first. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but if you can figure out a way to recycle the Duskull and the Dusclops, you can do it again, and potentially again, and then potentially one more time. So you could potentially get 200 to 250 damage out turn 1 going first. So if your opponent started like a 70 HP basic Pokemon, and you were like had a deck list that was focused around getting Duskull and using it as many times as possible turn 1 going first, you could potentially just donk them before they even got to play the game. So, and this also enabled cards like Lieutenant Surge's Strategy and Countercatcher. So even if you went second, you could go Duskull 2 or 3 times, play Lieutenant Surge's strategy into 2 more supporters, and then counter catcher something up that they maybe couldn't retreat, and then you could use more spread attacks to go attack their bench Pokemon instead of their active Pokemon. And after you cripple their setup like that, there's really no way for them to come back. So finally, the most recent ban is double colorless and twin energies, both of which provide 2 colorless energy for no downside. These got banned because they were so powerful, just overall. The ability for certain types to abuse uh, single energy attachments that provide 2 energy instead of 1, just it was really brutal. Colorless specifically, in my tournament review of the Full Grip Games 1K GLC tournament. The finals was a colorless mirror match. There was so much colorless on the field, and it was mostly because of these 2 cards being able to power up most of the attackers in the colorless deck for so much cheaper than other decks might have to struggle through. Snorlax can be used for 2 energy attachments at just 180 damage. Lugia, with one of these attached, can already do 40 plus whatever energy is attached to your opponent's Pokemon. And that's not counting if you play something like Welder or Raihan to accelerate more energy into play, get more damage out, and it's just crazy. And then Guzzlord with the Red Banquet does 120 for 2 dark and 2 colorless. Well, you go Dark Patch, attach for turn, and then attach double colorless or twin energy, and you're doing 120 and taking an extra prize card if you take a knockout. There is double turbo energy, which also provides 2 colorless energy, but the Pokemon it's attached to does 20 less damage. And the reason that these cards got banned is because the double turbo energy exists. So the game designers are moving in a direction that they don't want unconditional double energies to be a thing. So they're adding like drawbacks to having these cards being played, like double turbo energy again with that 20 damage reduction, as opposed to both of these which just provide 2 energy with nothing else. Twin energy did have a drawback, but it isn't relevant to Gym Leader Challenge because it's Pokemon V and GX, both of which have rule boxes. So it's just free, just more energy attachments for any type that can play it. So thanks for watching. I'll leave a couple links in the description. The official Gym Leader Challenge website, which is a great place to go to start your Gym Leader Challenge journey. There's some good deck lists on there. I'll leave a link to the ban list so you can go check it out for yourself. And then I'll leave a link to the Cardboard Warriors website, which is a great place to go to find more deck lists made by the community, and you can even make your own deck lists and post them. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.